FAIRtax is coming, don't stand in the way. FAIRtax is coming across the USA. FAIRtax is coming, clean up this mess. We got to get rid of the IRS. Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the
FAIRtax Guys.
Again, inviting you to listen to our weekly podcast. We do appreciate everybody out there doing that. We appreciate hearing your feedback, too. The FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com is our email address, and you can like us on Facebook as well.
Yep. Let's see. The FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com. I was thinking ahead to what we're going to be doing here today.
I threw you a curveball and didn't even know it.
Yeah. And because there's been a report, you folks have probably heard about this. It's been around for a couple of weeks. As this program airs.
Okay, hang on. First things first here. Let's get
back.
Yeah.
I'm so upset about this. I want to jump into it.
All right. Let's get our Congress watch here. Last time we looked, the number of changes to the tax code as we could find by searching on the Internal Revenue Code, that string on congress.gov, was 723. It's now up to 732. So the Congress critters are still messing with the tax code, and they are going to continue messing with the tax code as long as we, the people, let them get away with it.
Now, in that respect, we do have one piece of good news.
What's that? We
got another co-sponsor for H.R. 25, and that is Congressman Ron DeSantis of District 6 here in Florida. And one of our volunteers contacted his office a week or so ago and said, why isn't Mr. DeSantis a co-sponsor? He was in the last Congress. And he got a response saying, Mr. DeSantis will be a co-sponsor when Congress resumes session. And sure enough, as good as his word, he is a co-sponsor. That was just announced. And we found that on congress.gov, right?
So credit where it's due. Good job, Ron DeSantis. If you live in his district, call him up and thank him. If you live in a district where your representative is not supporting or is not co-sponsored the FAIRtax, get on their case.
And that's an idea, that gives you an example of what volunteers can do, all right? This volunteer simply contacted somebody in Mr. DeSantis' office and sent him a nice email, lots of detail, and we got Mr. DeSantis back on board with us. So the power of one, one volunteer hopefully made that happen, so that's good. I'm sure he was predisposed because he was a co-sponsor in the previous Congress, but that's what a volunteer can do, folks. So help us out with this.
All righty. All right. Now, I know you're just chomping at the bit to get into this story. Let me set it up a little bit for you. Here, on the past several episodes of FAIRtax Power Radio, we have done our share of bashing the IRS over the course of this program. And for the past several episodes, we've been trying to kind of go back to let's concentrate on the good things about the FAIRtax rather than the bad things about the IRS. But this story just fell in our lap. It is outrageous to the point that it was featured on national news.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Stuart Varney right there on the Fox Business website talking about this thing now. This has really got everybody's attention big time, and we're going to let the IRS have it.
All right,
go.
Now, it starts with a name that I cannot pronounce.
Yes, these folks they owned a dress shop out in Texas.
And
now,
these folks are
they're from Thailand, so we're not even going to try to pronounce their last name. It's about 8 miles long.
Yeah, it's like Thang Song Charan or something like that.
Okay.
But this gets me because my parents were immigrants to this country. It was almost 100 years ago that my parents came here as children. And they also set up their own business and so forth. And that's what these folks did. They set up a dress shop, a bridal shop in Texas. And apparently they're pretty successsul.
Yeah, they've been in business for over 30 years.
Yeah. So, this is what we want. We want immigrants to come here and legally, be part of the culture, assimilate. And these guys were doing this. They're probably creating all kinds of jobs doing this thing. So the IRS comes in and shuts them down. Now, there's more to it than that. We've talked about civil asset forfeiture before. This takes it to a whole new level. I have never heard anything like this before.
Okay, the trigger on this one is the same thing that happens in a lot of cases. I'm not sure how this happens, but they noticed that this business or this couple was making several bank deposits just under the $10,000 limit. That means that the bank has to report that to the IRS. So they come in, they call that structuring. They think they're trying to avoid this law that was set up to catch criminals. And these folks are obviously not criminals. They're running a dress shop. But that was the trigger on them, and the IRS swooped in and claimed that they owed $31,400 in taxes. Now, there's one thing. The tax code is so complicated, and we saw this in Money Magazine over 30 years ago when 50 different tax preparers got 49 different answers as to what a hypothetical family owed in federal income tax. So the tax code is so complicated that no matter what you say your taxes are, somebody at the IRS can and probably will calculate them differently. And guess what? It always happens to be that their calculation comes out against you in favor of the IRS. And so
imagine that.
This couple that said they owed nothing, that they did it all right, and the IRS comes and says, you owe us $31,400, and it gets worse from there.
So I don't think it doesn't say anything in this report that they tried to audit them or they had them come in and show their figures. No, they didn't do that. You
would think that if somebody sees that what they think is structuring, they could at least take the effort to figure out what's going on, see if this really is a criminal enterprise or if it's something like that. Nope. They just swoop in and get you regardless.
Yeah, you know that thing in the Bill of Rights about presumption of innocence and due process and all that stuff? Yeah, forget
IRS
it.
doesn't pay any attention to that.
No.
They never have.
And the IRS doesn't pay attention to it because Congress has allowed them to ignore the Bill of Rights. All right? So let's not forget that Congress is behind all this because they have given the IRS too much authority here. Or the IRS is taking their tools that were meant to fight crime, and they're turning them on completely innocent and law-abiding citizens. And this is another example. So there was no court finding, and the raid was approved by a federal judge. Why? Why did this federal judge approve this thing? Based on what?
Because the IRS said they owed money, and the judge just went along with it.
Yeah.
That's usually not... Judges are usually a little more competent than that.
Yeah.
So I wish I knew this judge's name, but I don't. We'd like to know who he was. But anyhow.
The taxpayers' returns on file with the IRS reflect that the tax year... the tax year at issue generated a net operating loss carryover and not a taxable amount, and alleged that no taxes were owed. The IRS obviously disagreed with them. But let me stop a minute here. We've all heard the commercials on the radio for these agencies. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, call us and we'll help you with this. Mm-hmm. Those ads are everywhere. There's all kinds of companies. And that's because there are, like Bob says, the tax code is so complicated. These agencies, they know how to look at certain aspects of the tax code and get you off the hook. Well, these people were not given that opportunity. Again, they weren't even accused of anything. The IRS just came in and said, yeah, you owe us money, we're shutting you down.
Okay, now here's where it really gets interesting. The gowns in the stock, the gowns there in that store, worth six figures, $615,000. Mm-hmm. Now, these numbers are coming through. This couple, thankfully, has filed a lawsuit against the IRS. They're trying to fix this thing. And these numbers was what was generated in that lawsuit is where we're getting these numbers from. But they are saying that their inventory is worth $615,000. And what did the IRS value it at?
$6,000.
Literally less than a penny on the dollar.
Yeah.
A $615,000 inventory, the IRS says is worth less than six. And why would they do that? Why would they devalue the...
My guess is that if it's under a certain amount, there's certain stipulations in the law that if it's under this, we can go ahead and do this procedure or something. Yeah, they're trying to expedite ruining these people is what they're doing.
Yeah, it has something to do with the cost of storing it versus the cost of just auctioning it all off right there. They undervalued that to the point so that they could go ahead and just set up an auction and have at it rather than store the stuff.
Yeah. So and this allowed them to auction the goods off not in 10 days but in 4 hours because they claimed the value was only $6,000 instead of $615,000. So they went a 4-hour auction. So the IRS proceeded to the auction. Some 4 hours later, the contents of the same day of what they said was $6,000, the quick sale netted $17,000. $3.75 per gallon.
Wow. I don't think you can get a wedding gown for $3.75, but apparently the IRS thinks that's... some people got a really good deal on that one. And I think what'll really make your blood boil... Guess who some of the people were that got that really good deal?
Yeah.
The actual IRS agents that conducted the seizure and were doing the auction. They swooped in and bought those things personally for themselves. Does the Fourth Amendment come into play? Unreasonable search and seizure?
Oh, there's all kinds of the Bill of Rights there. They're just unbelievable. And not to mention this fraud. I mean, this is... The IRS agents seem to be doing this for fun and profit. Yeah. That's all, that's all I can say.
So let's get the numbers here right. I know numbers are hard to do on the radio, but we'll go through this. The value of the inventory was $615,000. Now, the government said that the family owed $31,000. The auction netted $17,000, so what the auction got didn't even begin to cover the tax liability that was claimed. So to add insult to injury, within 2 hours after the auction closed, they were demanding another $10,000.
Yeah. So after they've already ruined their entire lives here.
Well, I tell you what, I have never seen Stuart Varney so aggravated from watching this little report that he put up on Fox Business.
Yeah,
I don't blame him.
This makes some of the other stories, pale by comparison. It's just amazing. And we've had some awful stories of IRS abuses of people, especially small business people. And remember, there was that report that when it comes to civil asset forfeiture, the IRS purposely targets innocent people because it's easier than doing the hard work of going after actual criminals. That was a result of a study by the Treasury Inspector General. The IRS purposely, in 91% of the cases, purposely went after innocent small business people because it was easier than actually going after criminals.
Oh, more. You talk about more insult to injury. The lead agent in this thing turned it into an entertainment show. He brought kids to sit there and watch what was going on. Do you believe that?
It's unbelievable to me. I mean, look, kids, here's how we ruin these people's lives.
Yeah, they set them on a pallet, brought them some pizza, and let them sit there and watch the IRS just literally dismantle this couple's business in 4 hours that they had spent 30 years building up. Oh, that makes your blood boil. And if you don't believe now that the IRS is a criminal enterprise, you never will.
Yeah, this is just so egregious. And this one has, like I said, you have probably seen this on the television. On Fox Business and so forth, and I'm not sure about the other networks, but it's been all over. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, it was the subject of the chairman's report in the FAIRtax Friday. FAIRtax Friday is an electronic newsletter that comes out, strangely enough, every Friday. If you're not getting it, please go to either fairtax.org and sign up, connect with us, or a better way is bigsolution.org. bigsolution.org, and connect with the Americans for Fair Taxation. And, Steve Hayes is the president of the national group, the Americans for Fair Taxation. He was upset enough by this that he devoted an entire chairman's report to just this nonsense by the IRS, and he goes into it in great detail.
I understand Steve is in contact with some of the attorneys that are involved in this case, and hopefully we'll get this thing fixed out. I say the couple was suing the IRS for I think $1.8 million. I hope they get twice that at least.
Well, they should go after twice that much. And then, so the IRS has to defend themselves. And who pays the IRS's legal bills?
We do, but there's still a couple more things about this story that we need to bring out to folks. That the agents not only seized the inventory, the dresses and stuff like that, they grabbed some stuff that they had no business getting their grubby little paws on, including a Vietnam veteran's hat that had been left at the shop. The guy wanted the folks there to sew some badges onto it. And they grabbed that hat that was not part of their inventory. It was something a customer had left to be worked on, and they took that, wouldn't give it back.
Yeah.
Video game consoles, a surround sound music system, a big TV, 65-incher. None of that was authorized by the judge's order.
Yeah, exactly.
Example. So you talk about agents that just come in, they know. These guys know that they've got unlimited power. They can do what they darn well please, and they don't have to abide by the Bill of Rights. They don't have to abide by the Constitution. And in this case, they didn't even have to abide by the judge's order that set this all up. And the fact that some of the agents themselves were purchasing these dresses for literally pennies or less than pennies on the dollar. And I guarantee some of these will show up on eBay, and those guys will make money off of this.
Yeah. You'll be able to find these on eBay. We have learned from the targeting scandals, with Lois Lerner and all that, not one single IRS agent was ever disciplined in any way for those targeting scandals. So what are the chances that if these people win their suit against the IRS, what are the chances that IRS agents are going to be disciplined or fired?
The individual agents, the probability of that is about the same as me commanding the next space shuttle mission.
Yeah.
And there is no next space shuttle mission, so that is zero.
Yeah.
There's no way that the individual agents that did that are going to be punished. They may, hopefully this will result in a judgment against the agency, against the government, and these folks can get back something that was literally stolen from them. And
so what are we going to do about this, folks? I mean, why are we putting up with this criminal organization?
Well, the better question is, what is Congress doing about it? I mean, what is their response to these kind of abuses? And if you look at this, you don't think the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. You dug this up. It's pretty revealing.
Yeah, this is from the Washington Examiner from June 28th. House bill would cut IRS spending by $149 million. All right, the legislation published by the House Appropriation Committee would provide... Now, this is a House bill. This has not been voted and signed by the President and so forth. This is a bill in the House. Published by the House Appropriations Committee, would provide $11.1 billion for the tax collection agency, holding its funding to below 2008 levels.
Okay, now that sounds good on the surface.
Yeah, but
until you start figuring out, all right, we've been hitting on the tax evasion problem here on FAIRtax Power Radio.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have all this evasion, you need more manpower, not less. So on one hand, cutting the IRS is a wonderful thing. We want to see them cut it back to zero. But then again, if you do that, what they're doing they're just going to exacerbate the evasion problem. They are caught in the catch-22. The guys up there have no clue what they're doing and have no clue how to fix it.
Yeah, how are you going to do something about the evasion? Well, you know what? Congress, I don't think, has really awoken to the idea of the evasion problem. I mean, we just don't hear them talking about it.
I think they're starting to catch on.
Well, I hope so.
Because we know that Steve Hayes and Peggy, who was up there earlier, who's since retired from going up there to Washington and talking to these legislators, Steve and Peggy have made folks aware of this. And they are just now, the light bulb is slowly starting to come on. And they are beginning to understand that the evasion is going to sink the income tax system because look, it's changing. Fewer and fewer people are working at jobs that get W-2s. You've got more and more people that are just kind of independent contractors. They drive for Uber. They have an eBay store, stuff like that. Not picking on those two specifically, but those are just examples of how you can make money and not be in a position of getting a W-2 and having everything you made reported to the IRS. And, if you know that you're not getting reported, how many people are voluntarily going to it's just against human nature to voluntarily give up their money.
Yeah.
So the system is broken. You cannot fix it. You've got to replace it.
Think of it this way, too. All right. Gone are the days where the vast majority of people worked in a factory or worked for somebody else and got a W-2. All right. With the internet and the profusion of computer technology and those connections made between people, as Bob said, there's a lot of people making money in very different ways that nobody ever thought of like 10 or 15 years ago, especially 50 years ago. So the American workforce is evolving. The income tax is not. The income tax is a harbinger of, 100 years ago when people were getting a paycheck. And, 100 years ago, only the wealthy people paid taxes. That didn't last long, though, did it?
No, not really.
No, about 30
income
years.
Tax started in 1913. About 1943, and of course, the World War II had a big thing to do with this. The government needed money, so not only had they extended it back to just about everybody, that's when they started getting their grubby little paws on your paycheck before you even see it, setting themselves up as everyone's highest spending priority. You will pay me before you spend spend a dime on your family. You'll pay me before you buy food. You'll pay me before you buy milk for the baby. You'll pay me before you pay your rent. You'll pay me before you pay the electric bill. All of that stuff. And that just boils my blood to think that the government thinks like that. And it's even more so to we the people are letting them get away with it. We do not have to put up with these abuses, folks. We can get rid of the entire system. Get rid of the IRS, get rid of the income tax, get rid of all the garbage that's going on there, and make it a fair, simple, easy way to pay your federal taxes, and that is the fair tax, folks. Help us get the fair tax in place.
We have to do this because, like I was saying, the American economy and the workforce is evolving way past what the traditional income tax can keep up with. There's no way the income tax can keep up with the way things are changing in America. It's not possible. It's an outdated mode of collecting taxes. The sales tax is a much better way. I mean, it's so much easier. There's 45 states have a sales tax. Do you see any problems with it? I mean, yeah, you may not like the sales tax rate in your state, but is it easy? Yeah, it is. You go buy something and the sales tax is included. When you pay for it, you're done. You've paid the taxes.
And the government has no clue who you are. All they care about is how much money was collected. And
exactly.
That's it.
It's totally anonymous, and it's so simple. That's what we need to do, and that's what the fair tax does. The fair tax is a very simple sales tax, a national retail sales tax. It's collected at the cash register, or when you write a check to the plumber or something, it's included in that bill, and the vendor has to turn it in. Well, they're already doing this in 45 of the 50 states. It's not a big deal to add this up. So the fair tax is so much simpler, and it will keep up with the economy because, okay, let's say people are making money in ways they never earned livings before, that never even conceived of, 15 or 20 years ago. It doesn't make any difference. They still spend money.
Yes.
And hopefully they have more money to spend because, the internet and so forth is letting them make these connections and do all these very different things than what they were doing before. Okay? So forget the income tax. Let's go to a modern day sales tax that will keep up with everybody. No matter how much the American economy evolves, the sales tax will always keep up with it because it's simple. You go to the store, you buy something. When you pay for it, you've paid your taxes. That's it.
Yeah,
no drama.
Yeah. Now, don't be fooled by all the rhetoric going around today about we're going to eliminate the IRS because we're going to simplify the tax code to the point that you can mail it in on a postcard.
Yeah.
Listen, if there is an income tax at the federal level, there will be an IRS. Period. No questions about it. And we've seen this movie before. You can simplify the tax code all day long. It will not stay simple. It will not stay flat. It will not stay easy because there are legions of lobbyists in Washington, D.C., all of them wanting to buy favorable tax treatment for their clients. They've got lots of campaign cash to hand out, and the Congress critters cannot resist it. They just can't do it. So you could simplify it down to just like it was in 1913 tomorrow, and within a decade, we'll have it back like it is now. It's just insane to think that you can keep doing the same thing over and over again and get a different result. We have got to get rid of the income tax, and on top of that, repeal the 16th Amendment so that income taxes again become unconstitutional as they were under the original framers' idea, And the Supreme Court said so. They had to pass the 16th Amendment to allow an income tax, so we need to get the fair tax, which repeals all of the statutory authority to do an income tax, but it is also contingent upon the repeal of the 16th Amendment. The normal constitutional amendment process takes 7 years, and the fair tax says if we haven't repealed the 16th Amendment in 7 years, guess what? You get your income tax back. We cannot let the government have both a sales tax and an income tax, and the fair tax does indeed take care of that problem.
Now, let me repeat Bob's warning. Bob was warning you about these plans to flatten out the tax code, reduce the brackets from 7 to 3, reduce the rates and so forth, all right? And that's going to make everything wonderful and rosy. It's not, all right? This is what Bob is saying. Remember what I called Speaker Ryan's tax plan that by the way, that's not even in legislative form. It's still just a plan that's out there, all right? He called it the better way. I called it the tax lobbyist Job Security Act of 2017. That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, because that's what a flat tax does. The lobbyists love the idea of flattening out the current tax code because they get to go to work again and unflatten it. And believe me, they will start before the ink is dry. They will start submitting bills and schmoozing our Congress critters and so forth. We need to add this thing. Remember, Bob already said that as of this recording, there's 732 bills?
732 proposed changes to the tax code. At least that's what we came up with. When you go to congress.gov, they got a search box there so you can find what you're interested in.
Yeah.
We searched on the string Internal Revenue Code because all of the bills that seek to modify the income tax are referring to that Internal Revenue Code of 1986. And there are 732. That search brings back 732 hits. Now, of course, not all of those changes are going to become law, but a bunch of them will, and I guarantee there's not one person on earth that can name a dozen of them.
So if we have an income tax today, and they pass what they call quote-unquote tax reform, which is not, and we have an income tax tomorrow, why does anybody think that Congress will stop submitting bills to change the income tax? It's not, they're going to continue with this. All right. I've said before, sometimes people accuse Congress of not getting anything done. No, they're very busy making changes to the tax code, to help their own constituents or somebody in their state.
And that's not going to happen with a fair tax. The only thing Congress can do with a fair tax is to change the rate.
That's right.
And if you change the rate, then that changes for everybody. You don't get the Group A gets a tax break and Group B has to pay for it. Does not happen under the fair tax. And right now, the fair tax, again, backed by $20 million worth of research, says that a 23% inclusive rate, which means if you spend $100, 23 of it's fair tax, and 77 of it goes to the store. That could be a 30% one if you look at it as a traditional sales tax, or 23% inclusive. We don't get bogged down in those semantics there. But that will work. And people say, 23% sales tax, that's outrageous. But they have no problem at all with a 23 or even 39% income tax. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And if you take your own payroll withholding and turn it into an exclusive tax, all right, it turns out to be a pretty high rate also. So how are we going to make this happen?
We are going to make this happen if and only if enough people rise up at the grassroots level and demand it.
We had an excellent example today of Congressman DeSantis. His office told this volunteer, emailed back to him. I saw the email myself. Yet Congressman DeSantis will co-sponsor the bill when Congress returns to session, and he did. He was good on his word. So, yes, those of you listening, you can call your Congress critters. All right.
They're the ones that are writing the tax code, and the thing that they are most concerned with is getting reelected.
Yeah.
And so we need a whole bunch of people coming out there saying, in effect, if you don't support the fair tax, we're going to support somebody else who does.
Yeah, that's
right. So
right.
when it becomes a winning issue at the ballot box is when we're going to get this thing, because the politicians, the tax code we've got now is exactly what they want us to have.
And get your friends and relatives to, especially those of you that live in the same congressional district, all right? Start calling your congressman and tell them that you expect them to co-sponsor H.R. 25. Also, call the senators in your state, whatever state you're in. Call your senators and tell them you expect them to co-sponsor, all right? This is one way we're going to do it. They do listen to their constituents, and if they get a number of calls on the same issue, their ears perk up, believe me.
Yes.
Now, what else can we do?
You can also go to PopVox, Popvox, popvox.com. That's a place where you can register your thoughts on any piece of legislation.
Yep.
So you can go in, you can double whammy that one. You can go in and tell folks that you like the fair tax. You could also go in and tell why the other tax proposals won't work. And people do pay. I tell you, every Congress critter has a staff person that is watching PopVox as well.
That's right.
We're going to have to wrap this up. We're just about out of time. Man, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I want to do a shout out to the people in China, Japan, and India that are listening to us too, to the world famous FAIRtax Guys. Thank you.
All righty. Again, so I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys. Again, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming, don't stand in the way. Fair tax is coming, 'cause the